It wasn't a bird, but it couldn't be a man. Okay, so that's the tagline from today's book, and it's A. Van Vogt's and E. Main Hull's The Winged Man, or The Winged Man if you prefer. That's a lot of nameage there on the cover, isn't it? Quite unusual. First of all, right, I'll be doing the usual thing. We're going to pop up the cover here. This is the scan of my particular copy. Later on, I'll be popping up other covers that have featured through the years. I personally think this is the very best one that is on offer, personally. Right. This book was featured in my book haul episode number 6. And I really started reading it based on the fact that the cover was so good. I'm often tempted by a splendid cover, and this one really got me by the short and curlies, shall we say. This was originally published in a serial form in a magazine, science fiction magazine. I can't remember what it's called now. But back in 1944, because I was quite surprised, on the copyright page it states the original copyright of 1944. It was then later rewritten in 1966, where around 25,000 words were added to make it into a book. The edition that I've got here is from 1977. I sniffed it back then, but I'll sniff it again. But yeah, it's got the musty smell to it, but it's overpoweringly infused with tobacco smoke. So this was from a smoky room indeed. In fact, it's so smoky that as I was turning the pages, reading it in my bed, it was wafting over me on every page turn. In fact, to such an extent, I imagine you could probably pull the pages out, roll them up, and smoke the bugger out of them. Yes, which reminds me, actually, I once heard of this is going off on a tangent here, but a prisoner was found to have had a copy of a Harry Potter book. And they found out that the thing had been dunked in some kind of drug. And the devil he wasn't reading it, he might have been reading it, but he was pulling the pages out and smoking them to get off his tits. So there we are. Pages can absorb aromas quite readily, and this one is of smoke. Okay. So, as usual, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. There may be some spoilers along the way. I'm not going to reveal the ending, what happens, whether our hero is victorious or not. But I want to talk about certain things that are spoilers, I suppose. I mean, we can't really get around too much of these things if I want to talk about it in any depth. But anyway, as a brief synopsis of the book, without giving anything too much away, we follow a Lieutenant William Kenlon, who is aboard a nuclear submarine. I think it's from the US Navy. I don't think it says when it's set, but so I think it's like mid 20th century really. And they're bimbling around the South Pacific when they encounter a birdman, of all things. And this mischievous fellow alights upon their submarine and attaches a strange device to it. Before they know what's going on, this device allows the submarine to be transported into the future. Now, I think it's around 25,000 years to the future, so this isn't just a little jaunt. They've gone way into the future. And it's a future in which we have birdmen and seamen, not seamen, a war between the two, and the birdmen are hoping that the crew of this ship, this submarine, what is it, the Sea Serpent, will be able to help them defeat the evil seamen. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. The only thing really, the other things going on is that this submarine isn't the only type of humanity that's been brought from the past. In fact, the submarine probably references the most rudimentary form of humanity humanity that they've brought forward to try and help them. The others are from other epochs along the way with more and more advanced technology. But as it turns out, the sea serpent is the only vessel capable of aiding them in this war. It's the only one that carries weapons, essentially. Now, the interesting thing about this book, for me, the most interesting thing was these very different forms of humanity that are brought from the past, and in such a way that they almost appear alien to each other. They have very different customs. Obviously, their technologies are very disparate, even though the good old sea serpent is the only one that's carrying nukes or these kind of high explosive torpedoes. Absolutely unbelievable. Okay, apologies. I had to stop there. There was some kind of motor running in the background. It will probably start up again because everyone around here likes making a load of bloody noise. But anyway, let's carry on. So yes, as I've said, there's a few different forms of humanity there, and they're all kind of jostling for position in this strange new future. So as the cover suggests, in the sky we have the Eyrie, the city of the winged humans. And this is a floating kind of edifice, a kind of vaguely pyramidal structure that just floats in the air. And then down below the sea, we have the seamen that live within these various domes. There's a great big city. And the seamen are causing the winged men a fair bit of trouble, in so much as they've created a tractor beam and they're very slowly tugging the pyramid down towards the sea, whereupon they'll all die. So this is quite a conundrum. And it's up to Lieutenant Kenlan to try to sort out what's going on. The problem he comes across is that these other humans that have been plucked from the past are all intent upon the destruction of the seamen as well, just so that they can go back to their various times and get on with whatever they were doing at the time. For stupid reasons. Some of them just want to get back because one of them is like they just want to get married. There's a crew of just a female crew. So the point in the past where they're from, I guess women are more superior to men, and yeah, so it's all crewed by women, and they're quite strong-willed characters, and they just want to get back to marry a man. Very odd. But yeah, I found those different types of human very interesting, so different from each other that they almost appear to be alien. Anyway, there's one of the craft. So all of these craft, these various ships and submarines have gathered together beneath this pyramid floating city, and they're having various conversations. All of them are intent upon getting an audience with Lieutenant Kenlan, who holds the guns, so to speak. Anyway, there's one ship amongst them that's mysterious. They can't contact the ship for any reasons. It turns out that this ship is full of aliens, the only true aliens that exist within this timeline. And they all look like crocodiles. Bloody, it's just a bit stupid. But anyway, upright, walking, talking crocodiles from some far-flung system in the Milky Way. It turns out, this is a very big spoiler, but it doesn't bear too heavily on the ending because I'm not going to tell you the ending. But anyway, these aliens are responsible for this whole conundrum between the winged men and the seamen beneath the sea. At some point, they've tried to, terraform isn't quite the right word, but they're trying to change this world into a sea world, I suppose. So they've done some kind of process that got rid of all of the land and turned it into a kind of sludge. And so the advanced humans in the past realized this was happening, and so they created two forms of humanity that would still be able to live relatively comfortably with the world being changed. So we've got the ones that live in the ocean, which seems to me the most logical form of adaptation to make if you want to carry on living on the earth, and the very strange winged men, or winged forms of humanity that gamble about in the air. So it doesn't seem as though they know that these aliens are responsible. So anyway, So it's all about what's going to happen, who's going to be victorious, will anyone find their way back into the past where they belong. There we are, there it is, in a very long, convoluted, rambling, bloody well synopsis. Apologies. Okay, so some reflections I have upon this book. The first being that the serialized form is quite evident in the way it's written, I would say. It's quite bitty. Various things occur within the story that don't really bear that much on the overarching story itself. Rather, they're interesting little tidbits that would probably have worked in a serialized form. The other thing that occurred to me right from the beginning was it's kind of like watching an old World War II film. I know that when I was a child, I used to absolutely love black and white war films. And, you know, the way that clipped way the British especially used to talk to one another in this kind of deferential way. There's a lot of that going on. Even though this is, I had to look it up. I thought perhaps this was a British writer, but it's not. He was Canadian, but it still has the same kind of sensibilities as a British writer, I would say, in terms of writing that kind of dialogue. I don't think Americans would have conducted themselves in that fashion. It's like a British crew, I would say. But they're very confident of their own proficiency, and there's a kind of what do you call it? I suppose they're confident in their superiority in some ways, even though they're obviously the most barbaric in terms of the other forms of humanity that come later. They're very confident within their own environment, shall we say. Perhaps that's more accurate, I don't know. Okay, so despite completely bonkers setup of this story, there are some very interesting ideas. Some of the technology that the various other forms of humanity have are interesting, especially for the time. Not so much now for us. For example, the languages that are spoken are no longer, you know, so English doesn't exist in the far future, obviously. So they're having to use these kind of translators that translate language in real time. Up until relatively recently, this was also a science fiction idea to us as well, but it's already we're already bridging the gap towards instantaneous translation right now. So that's not so much of an interesting idea. But there's some other things that they are very odd, I must say. For one thing, these crystals that are used by the female crew to try to take over the sea serpent at one point are completely bonkers. But yeah, very interesting at the same time. But anyway, as you've probably already gleaned from the way I'm talking about this book slightly derisively, I didn't really like it personally. But I will try to read another of his books in the future. I've got loads of them now from my various book hauls, so I'm hoping that there will be other ones that are better for me. I think because it's derived from this serialized form, that puts me off. I'm not keen on that anyway. I don't like the idea of something that's already been used before, just repackaged again just to make a bit more money. That's what it seems to me. I don't think the idea itself warranted being turned into a fully fledged book, but there we are. I found myself getting a bit bored, and that's never a good sign. But I did enjoy the world setting, the world building, if you will. And I really was quite interested to see how this conundrum would be resolved in the end. So there was enough there to keep me going. It was over-explained at times, and there was a lot of pointless introspection from our Mr. Kenlan, or Lieutenant Kenlan. So that's what made it boring in a way. I mean, a lot of it was things happened and we didn't really need to know the things that were going on inside his head to the extent that it was portrayed. So yeah, it's just, I guess this is due to the fact it's a lot older, this book, perhaps, I don't know. And people the readers of the time needed to know more about what's going on to bridge the gap to what they understood at the time. Perhaps, I don't know. But anyway, bored me. Anyway, yeah, so right, get the book down and let's give it a damn good thrashing. So the rating out of 5 today is 2 out of 5 stars. Now, I was on the verge of giving it free, but I'm going to be giving it the old heave-ho. So anything below 2 gets the old heave-ho. Get on there. Devilish thing trying to come back again. But there we are. The Winged Man. If you've read it yourself, what did you think of it? Have I been too harsh on this? If you like the work of Vogt, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, what other book by him would you recommend? I'd be quite interested to read it just to see what his other stuff's like. So next time it might be another book haul, or I've got a couple of other books that I've read and I'm hoping to review. I was going to review Where Late the Sweet Bird Sang, but I have to do some jiggery pokery to get that to work properly, and I can't be bothered to do it at the moment. I've got a lot of things going on in me old noggin. But anyway, let's leave it there for now, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheerio! Jolly good.